Today, we're diving into something pretty dark, cyberstalking. It's a crime where the weapon is a keyboard and the battlefield is the internet. But the fear it creates, that's all too real. So let's start by digging into what's behind it.
Okay, so to really get a grip on cyberstalking, you have to look at the psychology first. See, the internet isn't just a bunch of tools. It's a whole environment, and it's one that can take an obsession and just warp it into a really dangerous fantasy.
This quote here, it really nails the core of the problem. Think about it. Without actually seeing someone face to face, you miss all those normal cues. So a stalker's fixation could just grow and grow, totally unchecked. The victim basically becomes a blank canvas for whatever messed up fantasy the stalker wants to project onto them. And when reality doesn't line up with that delusion, that's when things can get really scary, really fast.
And that brings us to a really important point. Cyberstalking. It's not actually a new crime. It's an old one with a major tech upgrade. I mean, the behavior behind it, that intense fixation, that desire for power over someone else, that's been around forever. The internet just gives them a brand new and, honestly, a much more powerful set of tools.
And this quote from a victim just hits so hard. It's online, who cares? It isn't real. You hear that kind of thing all the time, right? But for the people going through it, the line between online and offline completely disappears. That digital harassment spills over. And suddenly, there's this very real, very tangible fear. It proves this is no game. For victims, it's terrifyingly real. So, okay, the threat is absolutely real. But how does the law actually deal with it? Let's take a look at the legal side of things, the framework that was built to fight this.
Naturally, the law had to play catch-up with technology. It all started back in 1990, when California, after some really horrible tragedies, passed the very first anti-stalking law in the US. But the real game changer? That came in 1998. That's when they updated the law to specifically include electronic communications. And that was the moment the law finally, officially caught up with the crime of cyberstalking.
All right, so if you're going to prosecute someone for cyberstalking, the law has some very specific boxes you have to tick. First up, the act has to be legally defined as harassment. What does that mean? Well, it means the behavior is intentional and it's severe. The key words to focus on here are knowing and willful. This isn't some accident. It's a deliberate campaign designed to cause someone serious distress and for absolutely no good reason.
Next up, it can't just be a one-off thing. The law requires what's called a course of conduct. Basically, it's a pattern. One single nasty email probably won't cut it. It has to be a whole series of actions that clearly show this person has an ongoing, malicious goal.
And finally, we get to the credible threat. This one is absolutely key. The threat has to be believable, right? It has to be something that would make any reasonable person genuinely fear for their safety. But, and this is the really interesting part, prosecutors don't actually have to prove the stalker planned to act on the threat. They just have to prove they intended to make the victim believe they would. It's the fear itself that's the crime.
Okay, so legal definitions are one thing, but what does all this look like in the real world? Let's walk through a huge case that shows exactly how all these pieces fit together.
So this case revolves around a man named Gary Della Penta, and it starts with something pretty common. He was rejected by a woman named Randy Barber. But he didn't just take the hint and move on. Oh no, he launched this massive online campaign of retaliation, fueled by what he himself later called an inner rage.
And what he did was just chilling. He was so methodical. He starts by impersonating her online with these horrible usernames. Then he posts ads saying she fantasized about being raped. And it gets worse. He gives out her home address, her phone number, even her social plans. He even told men how to get around her alarm system. And when she tried to fight back, putting a note on her door to warn people, he just spun that into the fantasy too. I mean, if you want a textbook definition of a terrifying course of conduct, this is it.
And then this happens. A man who is lured there by Della Penta's ads actually shows up at her apartment. And he says that to her over the phone. You could get raped. Right there in that one moment, the digital threat crashes into the physical world. The fear wasn't just on a screen anymore. It was literally at her front door.
So, what happened to Della Penta? Well, his conviction was a huge deal, a landmark. He became the very first person convicted under California's newly updated cyberstalking law. It was proof that this new law actually had teeth. It sent a clear message. What you do online can and will land you in a very real prison. A conviction is great, for sure, but it leaves you with a big question, right? How did they even catch the guy? How do you find one anonymous person in the vastness of the internet?
Well, investigators actually have a pretty clear process. It all starts with the victim, obviously. They collect all the evidence and try to figure out why this person was targeted. From there, they branch out. They start scouring the internet for more digital evidence, they analyze the stalker's online behavior, and bit by bit, they start to close in on who it is. This quote from an investigator says it all. You might think you're anonymous online, but you're not. Every single thing you do, every post you make, every site you log into, every message you send, it all leaves a trace, a digital fingerprint.
And that's exactly how they got Della Penta. It's a perfect example. The investigators followed those digital fingerprints, they traced his posts back to the servers he was using, they got warrants, and they followed the IP address right back to his computer. And just like that, his online anonymity completely evaporated.
So the stalker gets caught, and that's a huge victory. But it doesn't just magically erase all the damage. The impact this kind of crime has on a victim can stick with them for years, sometimes forever.
And the toll is just devastating. We're talking about substantial emotional distress, constant fear and anxiety. People get physically sick from the stress of it all. So many victims also tend to blame themselves, which is just heartbreaking. And for some, the only way out, the only way to feel safe again, is to pack up and move, to completely change their identity and start over. And this really brings us full circle, back to the why. At the end of the day, the cyberstalker's goal is simple. It's about power. And they get that power by creating fear. Their weapon of choice? Information. Your information, your address, who your friends are, your daily routine, all weaponized and turned against you. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. It's not just criminals who leave these digital fingerprints, we all do. Every post, every share, every click, it all creates this digital shadow of who we are. So the question I want to leave you with is, how well do you really know yours?